Today I'm replacing the radiator in my 2007 Chrysler Town & Country. This is a 3.3 liter engine, automatic transmission. First thing you want to do is make sure that the vehicle is cool. Radiator cap should be cool to the touch. You do want to open it so it'll make it easier to drain the coolant. Then I want to take this plenum off. I've got a 10mm bolt on either side and then these screws. So we'll start with that. It's a good idea to keep track of all your hardware. Make sure that the right bolts go back into the right place. If you've got a magnetic little pan like this, they're great for not dropping screws down into the engine compartment. Otherwise, I just try and put the bolts and screws that go with each piece next to each piece. Should be able to sneak this guy out of here under the... I might pop the grill out a little bit so it's easier for you to get this piece out of the way. Next, we're going to take this white metal bracket out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. I'm just going to keep the hood latch on it. These guys are retainers for the radiator, but I'm also going to keep those on this bracket. Less work I have to do, the better. I'm going to keep this attached to the hood cable and just set it up here out of the way, but make sure to cover up the battery so that you don't short this piece on the battery and send sparks flying. Covered up. I'm also going to loosen these 2 clips so I have some more play in the cable so I can get that piece out of my way. Just pop the screwdriver in. I've got some more room. These 4 bolts are 13mm. You should also take a second before you get too far and look at your new radiator. Make sure you've got the correct part, there's no damage, especially if it was shipped. We are looking to be in good shape. And double check what kind of coolant you need. Different manufacturers use all sorts of different coolants these days. This Chrysler, they want you to use the HOAT hybrid blah 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 special Mopar antifreeze, so don't just put any regular stuff in there. Okay, so I've got this white metal hood latch bracket up out of the way, battery covered. Now you can see more what you're dealing with. We're going to disconnect the upper radiator hose here. You need to take this hose off of this guy. Then your AC compressor is clipped. Let's see if I can get that to focus. It's clipped onto the radiator, so we've got to unhook it and just set it forward out of the way. You can see kind of on the new one, it slides down into these brackets, and then there's a clip right here, so pop everything loose and pull the condenser, not compressor, up out of your way so you can see. I've got the condenser kind of loose, separated from the radiator. Next, you want to get the fans out of the way. There is a 10mm bolt on either side, and then there's a slider clip like on the front of the condenser. So take those 10s out, disconnect the connectors. These guys have the little red locking tabs. I'll show you how to do that. They're kind of a bugger. There we go. Get that pushed down. Then you can usually push the tab at the back and slide the connectors off. Once you have this red locking tab pushed back enough, then you press this guy at the back so you can slide the connector off. This hose should come off with just a screwdriver. There's no clamp on it usually. Put this guy up out of the way. If you have pliers like this, you can try and clamp the upper hose off so you make less of a mess. Make sure you've got a pan underneath just in case. And as always, keep any animals away from antifreeze. It sweet and delicious and poisonous. Once you have the fans disconnected, you should be able to lift these guys up out of the way. Remember how they came out because they're kind of a bear to get back in? You gotta go around the tiny cooler lines over here, so get hung up a little bit on that side. These side pieces right here slide down into clips on the radiator. There's also a little bumper here, but just want to make sure it goes back together. These lines we were hanging up on are actually AC lines from the condenser to the compressor. Over here, the condenser has transcooler lines going in. Sometimes these lines go to the radiator. This one isn't set up that way, so that makes it a little easier. Next, we need to disconnect the lower radiator hose, and then we can pull the whole thing up out of the way. If you have extended hose clamp pliers like these, they're super helpful. Hard to get places, especially if the hose clamp is in the wrong direction, then those guys will reach down to where you can't really get that easy. See how I can sneak that guy kind of around on there. Hopefully not make too much of a mess. On the front of the radiator, there are these plastic covers that are just held in place by clips. These can kind of hang you up when you're trying to get the radiator up out of the way, but I've just been able to fold the plastic back and then I can sneak it out. Once you have the radiator out, do a visual inside the engine compartment. Make sure everything is looking good. There's little bumpers on the radiator that are supposed to slide into here. Also want to check your old radiator and your new radiator. Make sure that you transfer any hardware. My new guy already has these clips that I need. It's got this bracket on here that I don't need, so I'm going to take that off, then flip it over. Make sure you have these clips on here and they're facing up. Also make sure you have these rubber bumpers on here. My new radiator came with new ones. Yours might not. Then we need to pop these shields off and swap them to the new radiator. They should just be held in place by clips. Pop these in place on the new guy. I'm actually going to do in the vehicle because I was fighting so much this around the line, so once I get the radiator in place it'll be easier to clip it on than put it on now and fight it. Also, I'm going to take a little bit of silicone and lube up these bushings so they'll pop back in place easy. Once I've got this kind of wedged down into place, I'm going to sneak this guy on, put him in the clips. Kind of a pain in the butt, but I've got it where I need it. Now I've got to get that condenser, that silver condenser clip above the black radiator clip and get it into place. Let me get the radiator hose back in place. Make sure both these rubber bumpers are down in the holes where they're supposed to be. And we can line up the condenser. This should be clipped through on the front of the condenser, and then this guy should be sitting in the right pocket where he's supposed to be. Kind of a bugger, but we got it where it needs to go. Now we can put the fans back in place. Fans need to slide down into this little part. Then the 10mm goes right here. They should also be these clips. So get it all lined up. All right, so maybe you can see this. See how the little slider is up around the fan, and I've got my 10mm. Make sure that you reconnect both of the fans or you will have an issue with overheating. This guy has slid down into place. I've got the fans back in and both the temps. Next, you want to put both hoses back into place. Then we can start filling the coolant. Make sure there's not any leaks. The rest of the plenums and stuff back together. If it sounds like the engine's running, it's because my neighbor is currently mowing their lawn, so engine's definitely not running yet. What are we doing? You can get a 50-50 mix of coolant and water, or you can get straight coolant and add your own water, but you want a 50-50 mix. Once you get it full, you want to get the engine hot up to operating temperature, then let it cool down and top it off. Make sure you don't have any burps and that your fluid is at the right. You also want to run the engine until the cooling fans come on, so you make sure they're both working the way they're supposed to. Next, we're going to put this guy back in place. Make sure that these two brackets go down into the radiator. My husband likes to rear end people, so my guy's a little beat up, but that is part of the hold down, so make sure they're in place before you tighten the force. I also like to get all 4 bolts started before tightening any down, so I'm not fighting the alignment. Make sure you put the hood cable back into the clips. This guy actually went under there. Then we can get this piece. Make sure if you pop the grill out that you get these clips put back into place before you go back together. This plenum goes underneath the grill and underneath the bumper cover. I like to get all of my screws started before I tighten anything down. Then pretty much good to go. All right, test drive the vehicle. Make sure you get up to operating temperature. Double check that the AC is blowing cold and you didn't mess with anything condenser or air conditioning wise. Then you want to let the vehicle totally cool down and pop the radiator cap off and top off any fluids, and that's how you do it.